Joy Brown is a mother, a parent, a constituent school board member in Charleston County, and now a candidate for the Charleston County School Board. Today, I talk one-on-one with Joy about why she's running for the Charleston County School Board for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Joy Brown, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I know that obviously you are a mother, a parent, and actually you were born and raised in West Ashley. You have 4 children, as I said, because you're a mother, and you all have attended public schools in the area. And just a couple of years ago, you were overwhelmingly elected by the people of West Ashley to represent and serve the Charleston County School District for the District 10 Constituent School Board. But now you want to move over to the big board and become obviously a board member for District 7. Tell me why Joy Brown? Why now?
It's something that I've been interested in. Public education is my thing. I have no aspirations to be a politician. I've never thought I was going to run for public office. I don't think I fit the mold of your traditional politician type. I've, got quite a few tattoos and things like that, but public education is something that's super important. It's something I've been advocating for years and years. So, when I decided to get into, to do something about it, because advocacy, that's one thing to do. But I also realized I'm pretty proactive. And so I wanted to take that into the next steps. And so I decided very purposefully to start with the constituent board first. I wanted to get to know everything, how things run, the ins and outs of how the district works, how the meetings work. And I just really, really wanted to be prepared if I wanted to take the next steps forward. Now, right now, it's important for me to run because of this change with the districts being going from at-large to single-member districts. This is a huge opportunity. It's a big, huge change, and all 9 seats are up, and we really need to fill all those seats with as many strong leaders as possible. And I do think that I fit that bill.
Where is the strong leadership right now on the Charleston County School Board?
I personally don't feel like there's a ton of strong leadership. I think that being a strong leader entails good communication, being open, reaching out to your constituents. And I see a couple of people doing it on the board, but as a whole, I don't see a lot of that from the district.
What is your communication like with the constituents of District 10 right now?
It's great. Like I have already, I'm always there. If people have questions, I interact with people. I like engaging. If people are unhappy, I want to hear about that because you don't get better unless you hear from people, so you have to be open to accepting that and not take it as a criticism or a bad thing. That's something that we can learn and grow from. And that is something that I already do. I hear from parents all the time, whether it be from PTA or the constituent board or just, me talking to other people with education advocacy.
What is the current Charleston County School Board open to accepting right now?
What do you mean?
Yeah, what are they accepting right now? What are they getting back from as far as feedback? What are they actually what do they want?
I get your question. Okay. It is my opinion that they are accepting I think they're very selective of what they accept, whether that fits with the current plan and the narrative that they have and the trajectory where they want to go. I feel like they kind of cherry pick input for that.
Now, what exactly are they selective with when it comes to the issues?
I'll for example, with this, the D10 Middle School, so D10 being West Ashley, the D10 Middle School issue, right. That was a huge thing. As a constituent board member, we weren't even invited to the meetings, to the initial meetings. I happened to find out about it, and we had to change our regularly scheduled meetings. Our constituent board regularly meets at on Thursdays, at the same time where they were having these community meetings. Didn't tell us about it. They said it was an oversight. That's a pretty big oversight if you ask me. And so we were able to reschedule our meetings to attend. But that kind of thing, just that little bit shows kind of where their priorities are of who they are wanting to listen to.
And what exactly are their priorities from the people that they want to really listen to?
It's really, that's a great question. I ask myself that all the time, like, especially with this, again, I'll go back to the middle school issue. I don't understand what they're doing. We received new information that wasn't really released, with CE South. It's overgrown. They've outgrown their brand new building. So they just voted last Monday to add 8 new classrooms. We didn't know that. If I had known that, I would have pushed for something different, because that to me shows me that they're already outgrowing the brand new building that they just got. So the growth in West Ashley is more than they think. I'm not sure why they kind of swept that under the rug and didn't make that public. Yeah, that's a great question. I have the same question, honestly.
What type of data, when it comes to growth, that you want the Charleston County School District and the school board to share with the constituent school board members?
I mean, anything they have. And then additionally, I would love to see CCSD work with our city council members and our county council members to really get a good idea. We really need to work together. Obviously, they're going to know better of what developments are going on, what additions are going in. And if we just had that communication, that would help tremendously.
What is that communication between the city of Charleston and the Charleston County School District right now?
As far as I know, it's not. I mean, I know that the city of Charleston does not have an education committee. I was told that they did used to meet with Dr. Postlewaite,
right,
and that was it. And I know that the town of Mount Pleasant does have an education committee, and they at least have some meetings. I heard about a meeting with interim superintendent Kennedy. There, we don't get that. We don't have that. So I don't know that there's much of a relationship there.
I want to go to Dr. Postlewaite in just a second, but I have to ask this, and I hope you can hear me over the lawnmower here. But why is the Charleston County School District, in many people's minds, not my opinion, why are they so secretive?
So I think it's a mix of things that are actually acceptable, and then some things that it's just how they've operated for a really long time. I hear people criticize executive committee, executive session for meetings as a way to do things behind closed doors. And there is some validity to having executive session when you're talking about private contracts or students' names. We obviously that's not allowed to be out there in the public. I will say, in my opinion, it has been abused. There are times when they hold things in executive session for no reason. There's not a valid reason, in my opinion, to hold those things, except to hide them from the public. So,
yeah,
go ahead.
What else do you think they're hiding from the public that needs to be public information?
I mean, really, I just think, and I don't need, I wouldn't always categorize them. Like, I don't think they're nefariously hiding a lot of stuff. I do think there's probably some stuff that they would rather keep quiet because they want it to go on easily without any, backlash or anything like that. I think for the most part, it's just a breakdown in communication. Like, I see that all the time. We got notifications for the Power School, like something simple. It seems like it would be super simple. Went out district-wide, notifications for people to register their children in Power School. The communication was not there. I think they assume that people know what's going on, so they don't say it. And that's not true. Not everybody knows what's going on in the district.
Where did the communication break down from within the school district?
So it is my opinion that you've got to go to the top for that. And not to say that there's somebody doing I think it's at the top, because if you see that there's an issue, if if you have people telling you there's an issue and you're not fixing it, then that's where the buck stops for me.
What are some of the issues that are really needed to be fixed right now within the school district?
Oh, wow. There's a lot. I mean, right now, huge on my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, is this mental and behavioral health issue. You know, we've got a lot of things, lots of fights happening. We have things in the news every other day. You're hearing things in the news about what's going on in our schools, and parents are hearing about it from the news. They're not necessarily hearing it, you know, from the district. There needs to be a revamp in how we handle these cases and the help that, I mean, we're failing our students. We're not getting them the help they need and deserve.
How many mental health cases are there right now in District 7?
Mental health cases, I mean, so for me, mental and behavioral health is bigger than that. Like, I think that there are a ton, and when they focus right now, they're focusing on being reactive. So they're reacting to tier 3 students that are in the most need, and they are just, you know, for me, it feels like, you know, your finger in the dam. Like, you're just kind of like not really controlling the issue. We need to be more proactive and help those kids when they're tier 1 and tier 2, so that they're not getting to tier 3. So some of these things, like, you're seeing kids choking each other out or getting in these big fights, and that is, for me, that's mental behavioral health. They are hurt. They're traumatized by the past couple of years with COVID. You know, we've told them to stay away. You know, you're best to be alone, and now we're integrating everybody. We've got adults that have a hard time doing it, you know? So I think that we just need to be more vocal with our kids and helping them cope with things.
Now, how many of those students have actually reached that tier 1, tier 2 levels?
So tier 1 is going to be pretty much everybody. Tier 2 are the kids that, you know, warning signs, kind of things that you want to look out for. Tier 3, I don't have a number. I wish I did. As far as I know, that's not something that they want to talk about. I would love to see numbers of cases that are like referrals, office referrals, and then expulsion. I mean, hearings. So they're called expulsion hearings, but you're not necessarily going to be expelled. We try our hardest not to expel students. Obviously, we want to do what's best for every student. But our cases are going up for sure. They're high, and this time of year, on a good year, this time of year is tough because kids are, you know, they're getting ready for summer break. This year is particularly bad.
Now, those case numbers, how do you differentiate them from, say, 2 years ago?
Well, I mean, just some of it's anecdotal. You know, last year, obviously, you can't compare that because there were less kids in the schools. But just from hearing from people who've been on the constituent board, teachers, administrators, 100%, I have not heard anybody say anything but this is hands down the toughest year ever.
Where is the Charleston County School District's comprehensive plan to tackle mental health within their schools?
That's a good question. I don't know what that looks like. And I know that we've got the Department of Alternative Programs, that they've got things that they are working on. I just recently saw that they're hiring for school climate counselors in their alternative program schools. But I don't know what that looks like. And it's not, so I won't criticize, because this is a hard job. Don't get me wrong. This is not somebody failing, but this is just that we are not able to keep up with what we have right now.
What is that pace of growth inside the Charleston County School District?
I'm not sure what the growth is like. I mean, from hearing from Mr. Barowie, he's saying it's not as much as we think. I kind of disagree, but it's hard to say, and we do have a lot of people sending their kids out, going to private schools, going to charter schools, homeschooling. But if we're losing students, that means we're failing.
How many students have been lost inside District 7 over the past year?
I do not know that number. I know as far as kids, do you mean from COVID, or do you just mean in general?
Oh, in general, right now. Yes, ma'am.
So in general, we have a pretty high, unfortunately, we have a pretty high, what they call a live-in, attend-out. So kids who should be going to our schools, but they don't. That's actually a pretty high rate. In the middle school, I know it's almost 40% of our students live in the zone, but attend out and don't go to C.E. Williams.
Now, how many of those particular students from 3 years ago are now currently in private schools?
I'm not sure. I know that it was increased from the information that Mr. Barowie gave. He was saying that they thought that it was from homeschool or virtual school. But we unfortunately don't have the numbers. Like we don't get access to the numbers for the private schools and stuff like that.
Now, going back to what you said about earlier in the conversation about counselors and alternative schools, how many of those do you actually need right now in District 7?
Oh, lots. We need way. I mean, we need as many as we can get. And I do understand that the mental health field right now is they're going through their own challenges. There are shortages everywhere. You go to restaurants, you go to hospitals, there are shortages everywhere. And it is a really tough job. I will say that when I went to a behavioral health conference. It was the Southeastern School Behavioral Health Conference. And hearing what they have in Greenville, which is the first biggest, so Charleston County is the second biggest county in the state. Greenville has been working for years and years to really have a solid plan. So with their plan, they are feeling the shortages, but not nearly as much because they already have a strong foundation of what's going on in their schools. So I mean, we can't turn back time and make it that we've done that, but we just need to keep moving forward. And when I hear things like board members saying, "Oh, well, we've done a pretty good job. We have more counselors than we used to have," that's not enough for me. And I've heard that sentiment from other people. It's not enough. We need more help. We need more help with our kids. And guidance counselors are great. They're not mental health counselors, so they shouldn't be counted, which is what they do. They count them as counselors. We need to let our guidance counselors do guidance work. They're plenty busy without having to, also try to help with those tier 3 students.
And going back to Greenville, Joy, how obviously you said their foundation is strong when it comes to this issue. What is Charleston County School District's foundation exactly?
That's a good question again. I mean, I really don't know the answer to that. It's again, I feel like it's that reactive versus proactive approach. And a reactive approach when you're facing shortages is it's not feasible. It's not sustainable.
What else is the Charleston County School District reactive to when it comes to really big issues?
I mean, I think, unfortunately, I think it's kind of a lot, I think that, again, going back to this middle school, or you talk about any mergers, you talk about all these new buildings, it's reactive, so they're doing stuff for little things. Like, I've been told Lucy Beckham, brand new school, right, in Mount Pleasant. Brand new school, they've got to get trailers, they've got to get modular units because they've already outgrown that school. Moultrie, there's just so many schools that's the same thing. You've got CE South, it's a 2-year-old building. They've got to increase, the capacity again. So to me, that right there is reactive because you're building for, what you think is going to happen. But obviously it's not accurate if it keeps happening over and over again that we're putting modular units on campuses, on brand new campuses.
How many times has that happened over the past 5 years?
I mean, I don't have an exact number. It's too many times, though. If I can name that many incidents right off the top of my head, it's too many times. This is the point of planning ahead is to make sure that it can be sustainable for a long time. We don't get new buildings every few years. They're not replaceable. That's something, the CE North building that they're replacing was Middleton High School. You know what I mean? And that's a really old building. That's where lots of my friends went to high school. And it was an older building back then, So we need to make sure it's something that's going to be sustainable for a long time and not just worry about, to me, it's starting to feel like they're concerned more about, getting contractors bids instead of long-term growth and goals in our communities.
What sustainable schools are available right now in District 7?
Well, our elementary schools, they're doing good. You know what I mean? I think that there's always work to be done, but our elementary schools seem to be good sizes. They're not there's one school that's becoming overcrowded. But for the most part, that's something that can be worked on. And they're looking forward to doing another elementary school in Carolina Bay.
Oh, yes.
When you get to, and the high school, they're just growing around. So they've got that CAS. I don't know if you've been able to be over there. It's a great facility. The Center for Advanced Studies next to West Ashley High School. That's a great facility. That to me, because you're growing off of what's already existing and then offering new programs. I think that's great.
Yes, ma'am. What other programs or schools are there that could obviously are growing off of that the school district can actually implement or emulate, I should say?
So I will say in West Ashley, first of all, we do have an issue. We do have a lot of charter schools that are pulling from our neighborhoods. I looked at the live-in attend-outs that I was talking about before. Even for our elementary schools, they're pretty high compared to other parts of the district. I think that in part has to do with the amount of charter schools we have. We have Orange Grove, we have Voyager, we have our fair share, and then choice schools. So we have a lot of magnet schools, partial magnets, and now there's nothing wrong with that. My kids go to a partial magnet school. We are zoned for that partial magnet school. I sent them, we moved. I didn't realize that choice schools was a thing. Back when my older kids went, you went to the school that you were zoned for. So we moved purposely here to send them to that school. Now, everybody doesn't have that privilege, but I really do like our school. The school is very diverse. It's one of 8 truly diverse schools in our district. But then we have right down the street, we have Stone Oak Park that doesn't have nearly the people attending that it needs to have, or should have. They're doing great things there, but the perception is that they are not a good school, and that's just not true.
Well, how is the Charleston County School District going to fix this to keep this particular school sustainable?
I think I take real issue with the way that they targeted schools for years and called them acceleration schools, called them failing schools, and then really didn't do much to help those schools get out of that situation. I think that they are making steps now to help acceleration schools, but it's a little, for me, it was late because that pulled people that if they've got this tag that says you're an acceleration school, people aren't going to necessarily want to send their kids there because they've also said they're a failing school. They've got bad test scores. I would love to see us get away from labeling schools as bad because of testing, because there needs to be room for acceptance and growth.
Isn't Burke High School an example of that?
Burke High School is a great example of that, and great. The thing about Burke High School is you've got a really solid community. They've got great community buy-in. They've got a really strong SIC. They've got a good, unfortunately, for some reason, they keep being used. They've got programs taken away from them. I think early college, high school was a program that started there. At West Ashley High School, we've got the Scholars Academy that actually was supposed to be started in Burke. So, you know, I just wish we were a little bit more generous with those schools that have those strong community ties and that community buy-in.
And going obviously to expand that, it's further to Burke High School. What is the future in your mind of Burke High School?
So I know what I feel like people want. I think that people do want that school. I think that people want to take it from what it is. I am hopeful because of that strength in the community there that they'll be able to keep it as the Burke High School that we know and love. And it's an institution, you know? I mean, you're talking about decades and decades of families who go there, who are alumni, who live out but attend in because they want to go to that school. That's a testament to that school. So I think we need to embrace that school and let it be and let it shine and even help it. Like they need more help. So we need to offer that instead of trying to maybe be greedy and take it. Like there are people who want that property. They want that, you know. I would fight with everybody along with that community to make sure that doesn't happen.
What educational models do you hope the Charleston County School District will actually use in the future for underperforming schools?
I think that, first of all, what I would like to see is some consistency. I think one of the problems that our schools run into is that we are constantly changing the programs. So I think since my son has been in school, he's in 3rd grade, about to go into 4th grade, and they've had like 3 ELA programs, and that's not how you test things out. You don't test things for a year or two, don't get growth, and move on. You have to give it a good 2 or 3 years to even begin to see growth. So I think that we need to pick our programming and stay with it and really promote, you know, teachers are also having to learn all these new methodologies on the fly, and that we can't continue, we can't keep abusing that and letting and trying to get them to learn new things every other year. Do you know what I mean? So I think just picking a really solid research evidence-based program and staying with it and not wavering from it, not reacting to it, right? Just being proactive, keeping it there, and making sure that it is implemented to the best of our abilities.
Speaking of testing, what is the increased percentage of students making at least 1 year's growth on the NWEA math, reading, and math, obviously in District 7?
I am not sure of those numbers. I've not gotten a good look at that. On the constituent board, we don't get those numbers. But there's absolutely room for improvement across the board.
Where is the improvement, or should the improvement be in District 7?
Well, I mean, part of it needs to be that we need to step away from solely focusing on test scores. Like, test scores don't make a school, right? You need some testing to monitor growth, and to monitor where we are and where we need to be. But I will say, like, for me, it's problematic when all of the last quarter is dedicated to testing, because you've got state testing, you've got map testing, you've got so much testing toward the end of the year, and now that testing is almost completed, there's wasted weeks, you know. So they have to train, they test prep for a while, and then they test for a good chunk of time. So the whole last quarter feels like a wash, where we're just focusing on testing, and that's a lot of learning loss time, in my opinion.
And how much time have those kids in District 7 lost time because of testing?
I mean, it's a lot. I like I said, I mean, you're looking at nearly a quarter of the year. It's been months since testing started, prep, and then now they're finally into state testing. And that's a lot for kids, especially at the end of the year. And I think that might also tie into why kids are feeling so stressed out and acting out a bit more.
Now, you mentioned ELA earlier, Joy. How many of those students in District 7 have actually scored as far as meets or exceeds the South Carolina College and Ready assessment in the past 4 years?
That's a great question. I do not have that data, but I will look into that and I can get back to you on that.
Now, how much does the Charleston County School District actually spend on standardized tests such as those?
I don't know an exact number. I know that it's a ridiculous number. I know that it's a really high number. Just nationwide, testing is bad. But I do know that we tend to be a little bit higher in the testing. I know other places have cut down on the amount of testing. We have yet to get there.
Now, how much does the Charleston County School District actually spend on per pupil in District 7?
That, so this goes back to my thing that I feel like, because they talked about it with Mount Pleasant, they've given those numbers for Mount Pleasant, they've given those numbers for North Charleston. They have not given those numbers for West Ashley. I feel like West Ashley kind of gets forgotten because we're in that middle road. And so, and we haven't had anybody that strictly, our representation lives out, Johns Island, Hollywood, Ravenel, like that area. So we don't necessarily have somebody, not that they don't care. I recognize they do care, but not somebody that's in the community that's really paying attention. So we don't have anybody advocating for us. Does that make sense? So I don't know those numbers. That's a great point. If they can get them for Mount Pleasant and they can get them for North Charleston, they should be able to get them for us.
Now, what is the current Charleston County School District budget?
It is close to $1 billion.
Now, how would you align the budget to address the needs of the students in District 4 if you were on the board today?
Oh, District 7?
I'm sorry, District 7.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, and to that point, I think that, we need to address certain things, again, like the middle school, helping our acceleration school. I really think that the budget can't be a district specific thing. It needs to be something that is countywide. And I do think that there's a lot of high level redundant positions up at the very top levels that I think that we can probably streamline. We need to make the district as a whole run more efficiently. We had that scare where the district was saying that Mr. Kennedy was saying that he was going to give district employees with teaching certifications, teacher contracts. That's not acceptable. That's not something that we should ever think about doing. They deserve the contracts for the jobs that they have, right? I think that instead of jumping to that we need to make sure that we are streamlining the very top levels. I've been told that there's 14 people under one umbrella that, in my opinion, that's excessive, and not that running a school district, it's not easy. I know that it's not easy, but it can be a lot more efficient. And you're talking about the higher dollar people up at the top. And we need to make sure we get that money down to our educators and the other people in the district who are working really hard, but not being seen or heard.
What particular people in these jobs are not being heard and seen by the school district?
I think there's lots of, you got if you think about teacher, or you think about schools, you're thinking about teachers, you're thinking about first, second, third grade. You're not necessarily thinking about SPED. You're not thinking about again, they're not employed by the district. They're contract workers, but you're not thinking about cafeteria workers, custodial staff. You're not thinking about the social workers and the guidance counselors. You're not thinking about the people who are running all the data and doing all the work in the district. There's so many people in the district. People like to criticize, oh, 75 Calhoun is terrible. But we forget there are people doing really hard work and not getting paid enough, you know what I mean, to get all that work done. We just don't hear about them or hear from them, like IT people or, so there's a lot of people doing a lot of work that aren't getting the credit they deserve.
And quickly, how many jobs down at 75 Calhoun, where I'm sitting, well, not sitting, a couple of blocks down, how many of those jobs can be streamlined right now?
So I don't have an exact number. I would love to see a structure. I don't think that they have a flow chart and a whole, that needs to be the first step. Like there needs to be a whole flow chart of where people are, in what department. And then after that's made, then you can look at that and say, hey, maybe do we need, this extra person who's doing this job that this person's already doing? You know what I mean?
And I want to go, I'm running out of time, unfortunately, but let me ask you this. How many students in District 7 have actually graduated on time?
I am not sure of that number either. I don't know. That's a good question.
Now, where in District 7 has there been an increase in student achievement?
So student achievement, and what does that look like? Do you know what I mean? Like what to whose eyes? I think that can be taken differently from person to person. I do know that, for me, student achievement is looking at my kids' hallway and seeing that, there are lots of kids who are doing really well on their math tests, or they're achieving better, they're graduating, they're reading. Now that, there are people who are getting lost in that, but, I love our district. I love West Ashley. I'm partial. It's where I grew up, obviously. There's always room for improvement though.
And I wish I could have some more time to have some more
I know! That went so fast!
And Zoom is saying less than a minute.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, unfortunately. I used to go for a whole hour and I loved it. But Joy Brown, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome.